Okay, so I'm from Contrepois. Usually I'm recognized by the red glasses. I don't have all the beautiful hair and clothes style of Corey, so you just look at that. If you see my French accent, I want to talk to you. I've been in FinOps for ages. I used to do like Corey negotiate PPAs, rate optimization, all that stuff. Now I've decided to focus on context is everything and try to find ways to make FinOps specific to the person, not even the company asking the question. And that's me. Happy to chat anytime.
Thanks for that. Maybe we'll go with Shannon. Sound, how are you?
Sure.
Pleasure to have you.
Thank you for the opportunity. So I'm Shannon Eldridge-Kuehn. I'm based out of Chicago in the US. I work for a company called Ahead. I'm a principal there, focused pretty heavily on cloud, platform engineering, and FinOps. So prior to, I was at Microsoft. They don't focus on FinOps, but they want you to kind of spend more money, just like AWS. So it's been nice to kind of come back into the community and find this awesome community to be a part of, learn a lot, collaborate as part of it. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, and also thanks for sharing your knowledge in your blog site for
Sure.
Azure specifically.
Sure.
You should follow that. It's been featured a couple of times in the newsletter. And finally, last but not least, Dieter, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks so much. I have been working in cloud financial management since 2013 at companies like Google, Netflix, Intuit, and most recently Roku. I'm also one of the FinOps ambassadors.
Good stuff. Good stuff. We have been talking with Dieter in some previous podcasts as well. So we have three all stars of FinOps over here, and I'm going to start with you, Dieter, for a question that maybe people can take advantage of right away. Is that automation? So, in your experience or in your experience in FinOps, what has been the automation that you have seen or put in place that has made the most business impact in your company?
For us, it was forecasting because we looked for third-party vendors, and there was really nothing available in the industry that met our requirements. And we deemed that, or we decided that forecasting is sufficiently core to our business, where we decided to build that in-house.
Good stuff. Yeah, forecasting, I think for me or from my experience, one of the most difficult ones to do it properly and to make it align. So definitely, if you have automation, ML, all that stuff put in place, definitely takes a good advantage, especially if you are a large company. So we're going to do a roundup for this one. So on your side, Frank, what has been the automation or the thing that has made the most impact?
Oh, wow. Well, the automation, I say it's quite recent, the one I've discovered that is most recent. So I've been working recently with Cloud Custodian Stacklet, and that was part of the thing is to, as I say, I'm related to context and the idea of being able to decide that you are going to apply different policies if your company is hypergrowth startup putting everything on AI, or if you are selling shares and you really don't give a crap and IT is just a necessary evil, and that they are very not the same. So that for me was the automation, is the fact of being able to choose what you're going to automate and which order, in which priority, depending on the time. So yeah, that's me.
That's a good one. Yeah, definitely. The cloud custodian has been like a name that I have heard a lot, especially related to card rates and automation on that side.
Yes.
So I assume that's a good impact to that. And yeah, so finally, Shannon, on your experience, what has been the automation that has changed the business in your side?
So it's probably a little bit of cloud custodian rules as well as Python. Unfortunately, all of the tools that are out there, there's no commonality, so you may have to start to stitch it together. And the great way to do it in a very quick fashion has been Python for our teams. And so we've done things like as soon as a brand new application ID shows up, there's a corresponding budget and a forecast that gets set up with the anomaly detection engine, right? And we've used a lot of tools over the course of supporting our customers. So Cloud Checker, Harness Cloud Cost Management. We've used a little bit of Cloud Zero. We've got familiarity now with Cloudability. We just try to help customers out wherever they are. And sometimes our customers come to us with tooling. So we have to figure out what we can sprinkle on top to sort through some of the automation. So I'd say probably Python is first. Cloud Custodian, we're still evolving what we want to do, but it's very much so right there.
Good stuff. So, yeah, I think automation in general, like scripting of any kind, can help you, and especially I would mention, if I would say, is the policies, so cloud custodians or anything that applies on Kubernetes level, like Rego or the Kubernetes ones, and also anything that you can apply as a provider on Terraform. I would definitely recommend people to leverage those. So yeah.
We even go so far as to maybe use like config rules or Azure policy too, if that's helpful. It's not helpful in every single avenue, but we have quite a bit that we've saved over the course of supporting our customers. So I wanted to mention that too. Just thinking about that. Sorry, I thought Shaprai said that when you asked.
Definitely. And Shannon, about what you mentioned, you mentioned a couple of tools, but I want to know more about FinOps for the business. So
Sure.
which specific areas for the business or for the FinOps is like reporting or cleaning or the guardrails? What areas have seen that have made the most impact to the business? Not the automation like technology itself, but which areas being automated have had the most impact?
Sure. So one of our customers, we're working with a large global development base. Gone is the notion of centralized IT, so 3,000 global developers. We needed to create a way for them to embrace FinOps. They don't really care, unfortunately, and the only way to really do it is if you can use automation. So back to my example of Python, as soon as a brand new application ID showed up, a corresponding visualization was created so that the next day, if the developer needed to log in, take a look at the forecast, the run rate, et cetera, the recommendations, all of that was automatically done for them. So that was one thing that we did related to automation. Some of the areas that we've also helped out with are things like unit economics, right? Cost per contractor. A lot of my customers are going through heavy M&A activity, whether they're being acquired or purchasing. Just depends upon the customer we're working with. And so oftentimes they bring on consultants to sort of sort through the nuance side of that, right? So they want to sort through what it costs to bring a consultant in. A lot of times they're on a VDI instance or on, AWS Workspaces, Azure AVD. Oof. It's been a long day so far. So, but those are just seen as one resource, and it's very tricky because it's compute, networking, and storage plus the VDI instance. And so they may want to start to figure out what that run rate looks like with storage and networking. And so we've done, and even licensing costs too. So those are some of the things that we've seen become important as customers think through kind of that next evolutionary step of what FinOps becomes. Because I think these days it has to be more than just saving money.
Definitely, for sure. I don't know, Frank, if you have comments on the areas that you have seen most impact or the related to the context that you have seen in the company that has changed the way that it impacted in terms of FinOps.
Yes, talk to humans. That's for me is the main thing. I think Shannon said very well, but with the automation, I like also there was a previous talk also that was talking about, you need to present yourself, introduce yourself. That's something that I've seen having lots of impact, is that they know you create that credibility, you hire to help in some form or way. And at that point, it helps. If you have red glasses, even better.
Definitely, it makes you more noticeable for sure on the long distance, definitely. So yeah, and wanted to round up about that. So we have talked about areas that have a lot of impact. We have talked about tools. So Dieter, to bring it down to earth a bit, what are the the unit economics or the KPIs, the measures that you have seen more useful that can be applied to most companies? We know that the KPIs are very specific to business level or the business type, but in your case, what have seen that works the best in this term?
Yeah, so there are technical KPIs that are a little bit easier to achieve. Things like cost per vCPU hour, cost per gigabyte stored, right? Because this data is essentially in the cloud, right? So, and it's available at a hourly granularity at the minimum, right? And so these KPIs should then track over time downwards as the engineers choose cheaper options in the cloud. When it comes to business KPIs, it is important things like cost per tax form filled out, cost per streaming hour, right? The cost portion you have in the cloud on an hourly granularity, right? But the business portion how many tax forms were filled out, or how many streaming hours were served. That information has to be provided by the business in a fairly mature way, right? Which means some automation is required. If that business KPI is tracked in multiple spreadsheets, and it's sort of a mess, right? Then you may be able to do that like every quarter or something like that, retroactively, right? For the past 3 months, this is how the KPI looked like. If the maturity is relatively high for the business KPI, you can marry the two and can report that maybe on a daily basis, right? And so ideally, these KPIs, then leadership sets a goal, right? Either cost per streaming hour should not exceed a certain growth factor, something like that.
Definitely. I think that what brings the unit economics is the qualification of the spend. So we are talking like the initial talk is always like we need to save costs, but afterwards it's like you need to relate it to business, and that's what I think that was my my eureka moment or my aha moment about FinOps, is that once you link those, then that's it. Like you have it figured. Yeah, you need to build over that, and you need to construct from that topic. So diving on a bit on that one, Frank, we have seen, from going to cost savings, like, we need to cost. So we are now moving to like business value. So we are relating the business value to the cost. What do you think is the team or the FinOps team can make a justification of certain spends? What are the strategy to present certain spends to leadership and to say like this is justified, no need to cut in certain scenarios? How do you envision that conversation happening?
That's interesting. So if you remember, I think with Stephen Aldridge, so we have the podcast together, we're co-hosts on the podcast, and we did ages ago, we did a keynote together, and it was about the language. And one of the things that was coming out, I think what is important is that if you listen to the FinOps people, and we live in our bubble, let's be very clear there, guys, I think. We live in our bubble, and we say that, oh yeah, they don't understand, either the engineers, they don't understand FinOps, or we have the executive which are struggling with FinOps. But the overall thing is that, or even finance needs to learn more about cloud, and you end up and you say, look, money has been there around for 5,000 years. So guaranteed, they have a word for it. Okay, and I still remember when I went with at the time, a CEO to a CFO, and the CFO was saying, I don't understand that. They're talking to me about all this kind of stuff, which is related to RI, savings. It's complicated. And we explained to say, hey, it's a forward buying contract with an embedded put option at 12% out of the money. That's the definition of an RI that you can sell on the marketplace. That was done. The guy said, oh yeah, I know what to do with that. That's easy. And we need as FinOps practitioners to start seriously learning the language of the other bits, okay? And that's something I still feel is missing. It goes back to the human thing. I really believe that and it's on our effort. We are a connection with all the different aspects. And we might need to do training instead of presenting others with, oh, you should do the free training from AWS, or from Azure, or from Google. It's more about, look, let me do a training on finance and procurement and talk to you about it and tell you how my job impacts yours.
The one thing I was just going to talk about really quickly, one of the things we do with our customers is we hold office hours, and we'll help them with visibility into applications, what they're costing, et cetera. And we'll start to send out notifications. And we'll send out the notifications in a way where we'll say something like, if you want to meet with us and understand more about what we're asking for, join our office hours. We hold them Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever it is, right? Because we do service customers that are very, very large, medium-sized, and small. So you can imagine the small customers, maybe it's once or twice a month. But still, it's a cultural shift, and you have to make sure everybody understands it. If it's just technical, you're going to have all of the optimization. You're going to lose all the business context. And if it's just business context, nobody's going to optimize. So there's this interesting opportunity for us as practitioners to be that glue.
Yeah, and just say, I used to do a training for AWS, which was how to speak to a CFO. And it was very funny because you could see that people were surprised. I said, oh, that's how they think. So yes, CFO, they care, but you've removed all the power for them, all the control. So yeah, they don't like to buy design, but they like you if you explain.
Right. And there's a level of, do they need to know everything to the deepest level? Probably not. So it's let's pick the high points and make sure we don't lose the audience.
Definitely, and I think also what you mentioned is like taking into the right language to the certain people. Like you have to talk engineers one way, to talk finance to different way, because they as Frank said, they don't understand it, and that's it. Like they don't need to understand like what is an M2A instance in AWS. They really don't care about it. They care about how much it will cost and how
Correct.
and what are the terms to pay it. So you need to adapt, and this is a bit of the complexity that the FinOps has, is that it has a lot of different languages and a lot of ways to, let's say, reflect the same information, and the same information needs to be translated in a way to one people and translated in presented in a different way in another people. As Frank talking about the context, is that all of this needs to be different, needs to be digested different. The terms are not the same. Like an engineer may not care about an RI being there or not, because the instance will work, but a CFO will care a lot about how much that will impact the difference. So the complexity, especially in big environments, of course, and big companies, presentations, clear information, and try to adapt and try to learn, from all the perspective. It makes it more dynamic, makes it more complex, but that's why we are FinOps to take some risk on that one. So moving on to a different aspect is that so we go back to unit economics, and I want to talk about the real implementation. So we talked about certain unit economics that are relevant, that you can measure, but for real products that maybe if someone can step up here, is what have you seen it works the best to really measure the unit economics? So we know that it's difficult to get the cost, or we can get the cost, but then how do we translate to the real business impact? Not in theory, but in practice. What have you seen as a strategy that works over here?
So going back to my earlier comment, kind of like cost per
Mhm.
contractor, cost per API, cost per transaction, active users per tenant, those types of things, because we're now seeing access to so much more data than we ever had before. And it's now a variable model, it's subscription based. So we get asked to help out with seasonal employees like those consultants, or seasonal activities, meaning end of year processes. And so our team is getting to that level of FinOps maturity with our customer base.
Frank, you were to add on that?
Yeah, oh, well, the best, it's mostly an example. It's a nice story on my story treasure chest, and it was during COVID, was working. So one thing that you need to know is when you talk with researchers, so the researchers that were working on COVID, is you cannot put, in my case again, an RI that's going to be shared, because that's illegal. That's cross-sharing. You're sponsoring someone else's research. It's totally legal. It gets all of a mess. So we built another layer, which was roughly, we're going to do it as a for everyone and give a discount to everyone. But what is the really interesting thing, and I'm bringing it back to unit economics, is that the unit economics we had as a result was the number of days that research could continue above what it would have been normally. And that was, for me, was something which was incredible. And I know that in the UK, there was Dimitris was doing that in the tax environment, which was he was presenting to his engineers. They would say, yeah, you've saved the tax of one family. Well done, you. Or everything was reported back to a unit economic that was making sense to everyone. So it's not the unit economic as we usually sense it, but I think it's an important one that when you start putting the dollars connecting something you can grasp, you can understand, and you can see potentially on yourself the impact, that's where it counts. On the slightly smaller, I've been working exactly on this. I was about to work for potentially a big company, and the politics were just hopeful. So I said, I just need access to curve file. And as Shannon was saying, lots of SQL mesh and Python behind the scene. The idea is I've done something that I can put plugins, and it's going to just take the curve file and do all the query from the curve library, or all the unit economics you can think about. And so I have tons of stuff, and that helps you, even without access to the tools and all the stuff, to get something that you can present back. Because in the first 2 weeks, if you just started a contract, you better provide value, and you have zero access, absolutely no chance. At least in my world.
No, for sure. I think mostly everyone don't have access on that one. But I think like what you said about relating it to, you save some money to the taxpayers, it would be really, really helpful for the people working over there to, illustrate what they have just done. And wanted to evolve on the unit economics to a more maturity level. So we have talked about FinOps 2.0, so more business related. So to do some more business related topics, we have evolved from a crawl stage to something that is more important. So maybe I want to get your insights on this, which is Dieter. Maybe can you share us from your experiences? You have worked in multiple companies. What do you see is the biggest differentiator or the biggest, lever or trigger that you can have as a company to be a mature one? So what do you see that this is whenever you start doing this, then things are going in a mature way on FinOps?
I see that primarily as a mindset, right? How is FinOps viewed at your organization? Is it something that is nice to have, or is it something that you really want to be good at, right? And that will be a differentiating factor. You can do a FinOps maturity assessment. The FinOps Foundation has a spreadsheet that you can download for free, where all the 22 capabilities are listed, and you can set what your ideal target wants to be, because you don't have to be at the highest maturity rate at every capability, right? So you set a target and then you set your actuals. And that will give you an idea of where you are. And if there's a huge gap that you want to bridge between where you are and where you want to be, you need to build a roadmap, right? And the roadmap has to have activities that incrementally help you to improve your maturity. You don't have to go from zero to everything in one step, right? But make step-by-step adjustments. And then how often do you reassess your FinOps maturity? Is it once a year? Is it once a quarter? Or we use simply an online spreadsheet that everyone has access to, and they can make suggestions of maybe increasing or decreasing a target, or increasing or decreasing an actual, right? And then people can have conversations, comment, and provide feedback around that. So it's, in a sense, it's self-service, and I like self-service. That's always a good idea. And it's also in near real time.
Yeah, I think that's a very good proposition about everyone giving their opinion, and because you can get some perspective that are not different from what the standard would be, that someone has like a one for the companies. Like if someone else from the company considers differently, then you can start that sharing some other perspective. So definitely something to value. And I don't know, maybe Frank, what have you seen, that's different from that makes see you as a mature company in FinOps? What do you think is the trigger that they are on the roll?
Okay, so we're going to data approach also. I remember I used to work with COBIT, which is a framework for IT strategy, COBIT 4. They had a really good documentation where you add English sentences that would allow everyone to understand where your maturity was for a certain thing. I think we're kind of missing that at the moment, which is that easy to understand. But going back to you, I think this is one of the places, this maturity where I want to go, where we don't have enough data, which is absolutely amazing, because we're overwhelmed with data, with millisecond almost sometimes, or seconds, just crazy. But on this, we do not have market data. So when I was doing this COBIT auditing ages ago, the thing was the customer wanting to know, where are my competitors? And that was the line. You see, if I'm spending more than my competitors on that stuff on IT, and I do chairs, I do sofas, I really don't want to spend more, then I am overspending in IT. I just need to be slightly more efficient than the others, and possibly on the color of my sofas, and not on the IT bit. So I think what we're missing is that, and it might exist, but it is that in my vertical, in my level of spend, where I am, and I've been trying to work. By the way, this is a brilliant business model that Bloomberg and Thomson Reuters are doing. Give me the money for free, I sell it back to you anonymized. Absolutely amazing. But the idea is that, yeah, there is missing something here for you to very easily map where you want to be, because yeah, it's competitive usually. I'm done.
Thanks for sharing that, Shannon. Do you have an experience on that one, on what sets the maturity level apart from your experience?
Sure. I think it goes back to what I originally told you when you were asking for ideas. I think a lot of customers get so fixated on saving that they're not figuring out the ways to sort of evolve, right? So, automating anomaly detection, continuous forecasting, automatic budgets, right? Building out the reporting that you need without having to go and spin it up yourself. Having maybe a roadmap, right? You've got a new team that's coming on. They need to sort of understand what FinOps is, because again, I think. Well, actually, sorry, I didn't actually say this. I said this earlier today, but it's been, again, a long day. I think a lot of customers forget the fact that there still could be this notion of a central team. I think a FinOps team that should be central, and then you just find your FinOps champions and you gamify that throughout the org. But I think it's one of those things where if you keep that competencies in a central team, you've got the technical capabilities, the financial capabilities of understanding how to map that to technical capabilities, and you can start to really drive the right KPIs holistically, right? So, if you're keeping track of P&L, if you're trying to, build out forecasting better, I think that's the hardest part. And if you just need to get your finance folks understanding the notion of CapEx CapEx to OpEx. And so I still think there's a lot of question marks. And so I think a mature organization would be looking at a centralized FinOps team that's cross-pollinated, meaning it's not just technical, it's not just finance. Maybe it's modern day DevOps, right? We always said we wanted DevOps and it kind of turned into platform engineering, but maybe that's what it becomes, right? It's this interesting intersection that's a cross-pollinated team.
Yeah, definitely. We don't have to forget that it's the FinOps is finance plus DevOps, so it has to have some those. But
correct.
Frank, you were to say?
I want to add something on Shannon's thing, which is very interesting. Which is a problem that I've heard about by multiple FinOps people is we are a mix of lots of things. We know how to speak with lots of people, which means that we don't have a career path after FinOps. And so you say, I want to go higher, and I say, where will you go? Do you go to procurement? Are you going back to engineer? And I've heard, and I'm not going to say, it's people saying that there is some sort of it's unclear where you go, where you could progress next. So you might end up with having people doing FinOps for longer than usually people stay in a role in their industry. You have promotion every 4 years. You have some people, I've been there for 6 years. Now, some of them really successfully expanding horizontally, but the going up, I feel, is sometimes blocked.
Maybe it's an aspiration to start out and find a way to get to director of FinOps. They are starting to show up. I don't know if you've seen this on LinkedIn or wherever you look at job openings. I'm starting to see more and more director of FinOps roles, right? And so maybe that means at some point there will be a vice president of FinOps, right? Like, who knows? This is an interesting space. It's evolved very quickly, and these evolutionary steps that the whole notion of what FinOps has become. It'll be interesting to see where it is in 2 to 3, maybe even 5 years from now.
I think the scope that is expanding the FinOps Plus, it will help that, because all of
Very
a
much
sudden
so.
you have a remit that requires you to have more people
Very much
under
so.
you. And so a hammer on the glass ceiling works brilliantly from the top, even better.
We're the ones breaking it down, right, Frank?
Definitely. It has to be some pioneer, so everyone has to, sometimes it has to be a first one. And I do believe, like what you both said about the FinOps Plus, I think with more areas and more responsibility, will take more organizational structure on FinOps. And we get away from the cloud, so you are limited to the CCOE or to any IT level. And now you are bringing other people, you are bringing procurement, you are bringing licensing, which normally it's a bit far away to a different unit. So you are getting into some level that makes like probably big companies like a lot, which is like making a lot of things in the same place, in the same team. It's like, yeah, you do this and this is fine, and you have a director over there, and she or he will figure it out, and a lot of responsibility over there. And one interesting question has been on the chat, because I want to get your experiences, is what is your suggestion for startups where FinOps is still not known within the company? What are, how do you approach FinOps in the startup world if there is no that? Dieter?
For a startup, depending on your size, right? Because sometimes startups are like 5 people or 50 people. But someone should do a little bit of FinOps as a part-time job, Get started like that. Focus on the biggest and lowest hanging fruit. If you have compute, maybe you can buy some savings plans. The compute shape may change over time, but the high watermark of your compute may not go down, right? So focus on those things. And when it comes to anomalies, those kind of stuff, maybe looking at that like once or twice a week is sufficient, because people are still doing new innovation, right? And it's normal that new workloads may pop up or disappear.
Yeah, definitely. Those are very good advices. I don't know, Frank, if you have experiences from dealing with the startup course. What have you been your insights on that?
Yeah, mine, and it was a crash course, but that's another problem. But as you just said, there are startups which are 5 people or 1, and you have startups which are 300. But the main thing I think is it's different. If you're in hypergrowth, really don't care. The only thing you should take from FinOps, which is the right thing, is reporting. Report back, because that's what shareholders are going to ask. That's what new investors are going to ask. Just show the value of cloud. But yeah, you're bringing 10,000 customers a day. Just focus on that. Serve these customers, ignore the rest, and get more money in the future. That's roughly the point. If you are a startup which is selling so far that we were selling before, and you have an innovative color, yes, absolutely, do FinOps from the beginning. As soon as IT is a necessary evil, FinOps is definitely going to be a requirement, because if you are, and the way I see it is that if you are in a tech company, you're going to have usually high margins, which means the CTO will have more power than the CFO. Then you're good to go. Just do tech. If you are in a low margin business, the CFO will have way more power than the CTO. And at that point, you need to be checking every single penny. And that's where all the things we do in FinOps will come to in some way. Oh, but you really focus on that cost saving bit much more than the reporting bit. If you're growing, if you're CTO driven, do reporting.
Definitely. I would say that also, especially with the AI. So if you are an AI startup, you need to do FinOps for AI like as soon as you can. Because if you hit the hockey stick curve, it could be good for your business, but it also could be a lot of spend. And we have seen a lot of companies of that type of struggle with the cost of usage, because they haven't considered it. Like, what happens if I do a subscription and I have a consumption-based model as a cost? That difference, how do I leverage that? How do I compensate for that? And we have seen like AWS, Cloud Code, and all of these big companies making that mistake, even though they are like creating this, so it doesn't make any sense. So you need to leverage that, especially if you have a SaaS company related to AI.
We are still on the free ride, and no one is paying for the right amount of money for AI. So absolutely brilliant. I'm using it every day. I'm super happy about this. I'm happy that it's their money. The day we're going to come to recognition, I hope the price will have dropped dramatically and technology will go very high, because I will not be able to pay probably.
I think I keep joking we've got to use AI to figure out AI, because I feel like that's the only way this is going to get cheaper and more accessible. Now it's more accessible now than it's ever been, but I think it could be even more accessible, I'd argue.
Yeah, I would say. And also there is the problem we have discussed in previous session and webinars, is that the amount of things that you need to have into account, like the prompt engineering, the caching, the inference. There is the difference between, training and consuming. And then, of course, you have the multiple providers. So you have a lot of providers, a lot of ways to consume it, a lot of areas that are consuming that. Is not that you can have it centralized in a, this team is consuming AI. It's not like your org is consuming AI, because if you have things like, Copilot, Klein, all these tools that the developers can use, it's, it's everywhere, and it's difficult to control something that is basically everywhere. Good stuff, good stuff. So I wanted to, close a bit, because we are almost on time. I don't know if there is another question. There are sharing about experiences with Cloud Custodian. I think, Frank, you replied
Yeah, I've said
to.
I'm happy to chat. I'm happy to get you to the right people, etc. So that's absolutely no problem. And I had something obviously to say about AI, which I forgot. You're lucky you, Lisa.
Definitely. So it's something that is interesting. And what I wanted to bring up is what Frank said about the difference between the business models. So you need to be aware about what your business is and what you are working for. If you have it's not the same to have a low margin when each cost or each operational cost, if it makes a lot of difference, like it exponentially changes what a summary is. When you have a high margin, you can, especially you'll probably have a business that is more experimental. You can play a lot with R&D and you have more margin. But if you are working on, more traditional business that has lower margins, that, for example, I would say transports and logistics, they play on the thin margin, or supermarkets, they play on the super thin margin. So any difference that you can make there on volume impacts a lot. So definitely on those business, I think it's way more important to go to the detail to become like the best of the best, because there will be slight changes that on volume it will break like the bill in half, and then that's it. You have saved your company a lot of money. So
I think
yeah.
there is but there are I think the definition, you can search it online. I don't remember the term, but there are three type of company. One is it's a customer. You know your customer. You work with your customer. You're intimate almost with your customer. The other one is operational excellence. That's the Ryanair of this world. It is, I don't care about the customer. I give them the cheap thing. Full stop. They are going to come. And there is another one in between, which I don't remember at the moment. And it's really, I'm writing an article about it. That's why I remember. That's the only reason. But yeah.
Well, it's a good one. It's a good one. And I think that, as FinOps, for me, it's because it allows you to relate a lot of the IT things coming from the IT part to business. And, you start to understand business. And that's a super valuable skill that I think FinOps gives, is that you start to understand, coming from the technical side, or maybe finance would happen, even you start to understand the business, how it works, how it impacts, how, the things that you do normally, engineers sometimes are a bit disconnected to what the business is doing. And I think if you're a FinOps engineer, you're like super connected to the business, and you start to understand, and you start to understand your company, how it works, the different actors, the finance part, the procurement part, which are making the money. So definitely leverage that as of learning for your FinOps career. Okay, so I think that's all. Yeah, we're super right on time. Thanks, Shannon, Frank, and Dieter for being here. I'm going to start the voting, because if not, I will forget, because it's been already a long day. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I really do have enjoyed it. It's a pleasure to
I
have you
can't
all
vote
here.
for myself, which is
I know. I was just going to give you a hard time, Victor. I cannot vote for myself.
I'm not sure like why it happens. I'm going to check it for tomorrow, because
That's pretty funny. That's actually pretty funny.
Okay.
I mean, I appreciate the fact that I can't be biased, but oh my gosh, I was like, perfect, I'll vote 10. I'm like, I can't vote anything. And then the red at the bottom said, the host and panelist cannot vote.
But can you imagine? It was the same before for other sessions. I was not authorized to vote.
I am
Victor, I need a sneaky one to be able to vote for others and then come back for mine and not being able to vote for them.
I have to say that I have seen this configuration somewhere, but I don't remember where, and I have been live for 5 hours or something.
You're fine.
But
We're good.
I know that for tomorrow I will fix it. I need to fix it.
Have some sleep. My recommendation: ignore that and sleep.
Definitely.
Come on, you do.
Sleep isn't overrated. It's
Yeah.
probably not prioritized enough.
Definitely. I'm going to take some good sleep after the event, and a good meal, by the way. So thanks a lot. I love to talk with you people. It's always a pleasure to have your insights.